Are you ready to be in the spotlight? Are you ready to share your story with the world? Well, Snails with No Shells is where you need to be. Available on all digital platforms, Facebook, and YouTube. Snails with No Shells. Leave that shell at the door. Where did we go wrong? We were doing so well. Greetings, beautiful ones. I am Miss BJ Martin, and this is Snails with No Shells. Leave that shell at the door. That is my only rule. All right, now let's get into it. I'm going to bring an amazing guest to the stage. This gentleman, yes, gentleman has been on my platform before, but he was with a group of men. And so I decided that I wanted to talk to him alone. I wanted to get him individually by himself and just learn a little more about him. All right, let me bring him to the stage. Lawrence Stokes.
Thank you. Hello.
Greetings.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for coming. Awesome. So, Lawrence Stokes, where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in Bridgeport, Connecticut,
Okay.
uh, city 64 miles north of New York City.
Okay. So, I mean, when you say that, all I can think about is snow.
When it gets snow, yes, we got a lot of snow, and I personally loved it growing up there. I don't think of anything else. That's home for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so you enjoyed the snow. I'm originally from Cincinnati, Ohio. I do not miss that snow. I'm in Atlanta now. I do not miss that snow at all, that weather at all.
I don't miss it now that I'm older. Growing up in it, loved it. Always sled ride and the coldest. Now I was stationed in places during my military career that was just as cold, if not colder. I don't miss none of that.
Uh-huh.
One time I was on a project in New York City after I got out the military, and I remembered how that cold was, and I quickly came back to Texas. So no, I don't miss it now.
I bet. Yes, he said Texas. I'm a Cowboys fan. Mr. Stokes is not. We had a mini discussion prior to starting this video, and he is a
I'm
giant.
a Giants fan. Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
This one, I don't know when y'all gonna see this, but we did. We just beat the Giants, so I'm
That's
excited.
okay. That's okay. We got two Super Bowls this century, so we're good.
Yeah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I want to read a little bit of Mr. Stokes' bio. It says that he's born and raised in Bridgeport, Connecticut, a graduate of Central High School, class of 1981. Okay. A retired Navy veteran. Yes, thank you for your service. Lawrence Stokes has earned his Master of Arts degree in Professional Development with a minor in counseling from Dallas Baptist University, Dallas, Texas. Holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Applied Science from the University of North Texas. Ooh, and an associate's degree in paralegal from El Centro College, Dallas, Texas. Currently employed as a felony criminal court coordinator.
Right.
Now, I definitely want to talk about that because I've never heard of that. So we definitely gonna touch on that. And you also have certificates in mediation for adult conflict and family resolution. And you hold a certificate as a life coach from Dallas Baptist University. Awesome. Awesome. Lawrence kept it sweet and to the point. I love that. Says a lot about his personality. Sweet to the point. Okay, so growing up, going back to you being from Bridgeport, Connecticut,
Mhm.
growing up there, what was it like?
Growing up in Bridgeport, I grew up in the projects. Then we moved to the north end of town, and for me, this was a city that the village actually raises children. Everybody knew. I'm the baby of my family, so uh, everyone who knew my older brothers and sisters knew me just on sight, and there were a lot of them who I didn't know. So, for the lack of a better term, I had eyes on me at all times, no matter what it was I did or where I was hanging out at. And there were certain times where I'm in a place where I'm not supposed to be, and someone would tap me on my shoulder and say, "Hey, little Stokes, you know you're supposed to be here, and don't let me catch you in here no more," and would threaten me with bodily harm if they did.
Right.
A lot of neighborhood kids played sports, football, basketball, street football, basketball, baseball. A lot of neighborhood kids. So I actually had a blast growing up there. I have zero regrets of my childhood, and I had a great time. And a lot of friends, some still living, some have passed, and I have fond memories of. So I have fond memories of growing up in Bridgeport.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Awesome. And so another question that I have for you, Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
Wait a minute. You said they called you Little Stokes?
Little
Is that
Stokes, yeah. Or at home, everybody knows me as Larry. But away from that, since I joined the military, I'm Lawrence. And if you didn't grow up with me, don't call me that, because I look at you like you're new food. I mean, we didn't grow up together, so you don't get that honor, So
right?
I'm Lawrence away from home. When I go home, Larry, my brothers and sisters call me that. So that's who I am.
Okay. Okay.
But we're two different individuals. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. So Lawrence, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Actually, when I grew up, I wanted to be two things. I wanted to be an NBA ball player, but I never grew up. I never grew past 5'10". And after that, I didn't have any dreams, but there was a part of me that always wanted to be an attorney. Always wanted to be an attorney. I thought that I would have been a great attorney.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And currently, the position I have currently, I work with a lot of criminal defense attorneys. So I didn't get that goal, but I'm in something that I thoroughly enjoy.
Okay. All right. And it says that you did get your associate's degree in paralegal
Correct.
from
Correct.
College. So
actually, let me give this little backstory.
okay.
I didn't start college until I was 42 after my military career. And part of that was because I didn't believe in myself. I didn't think I was smart enough.
Mm.
So after coming out of the military, and I had a job, I was laid off for 5 whole years, which was new to me. I've never been laid off before, never been out of a job. I joined the military at 17. And finally, I said, okay, well, let me try college. So I went, and I was initially going to get my degree in criminal justice. And I said, well, I didn't want to. I did want to do it. So no sooner than I walked out of the counselor's office, I turned back around and said, no, I want paralegal. Only because I wanted to know the nuts and bolts of the law. I wanted to know how to write briefs. I wanted to know how to look for case law. And most importantly, I felt that if I ever got caught up in something, I didn't want an attorney or anybody to talk over my head and me not know what they were saying. So I took paralegal, and I probably could have graduated a year sooner, but I took every class they had because I was just curious. It just fascinated me. The law fascinated me. So I took every class they had.
Wow. And you say you were 42 when you started?
I was 42 when I started college. And here's the irony of this. When I was stationed in Oakland, California, I literally lived next door to a college for 7 years. Mm-hmm. And I took 2 classes, and I did well, but during that time frame, I was still kind of, I did well, but I really didn't think I was smart enough. I honestly did not think I was smart enough to do it. And so I took the 2 classes, and after that semester, I never went back. Mm-hmm. And then, when I moved to Texas, after going through what I had went through in terms of being laid off and going to secondary school, I went to broadcasting school. I figured I would. Oh yeah, I went to broadcasting school. I said, well, let me try getting into broadcasting because my military background is in communications.
Okay.
So I said, well, let me see if I can tie that in and get into broadcasting. And when I did that, I understood how, number one, cutthroat the business was. And
Mm,
then I said, well, I'm kind of too old to chase the dollar, because they was like, well, hey, you even have to go here, and and you're really not paid unless you're syndicated. That's when I understood that. So I
mhm.
said, okay, well, let me get into a computer school, which I did, and that was another secondary school because every class I took didn't transfer over to college courses. So I
Mm,
decided, well, let me try and go to college. And when I took the assessment exam, the the instructor, the counselor came out when he called my name and he says, "Look like we have a genius here." I'm like, I looked at him like, "What are you talking about?" And he says, "You aced the assessment exam," which blew me away because I'm like, "Oh, okay," because I just knew I'd have to take remedial courses, in
mm,
particular math, because I dropped that in my sophomore year of high school. I'm like,
right.
no. And so I was fortunate enough to, when I started college, I went directly into my core classes.
Mhm.
So that's where it all began. And my first semester in college, I made the dean's list,
What?
which surprised me because in grammar school, high school, I never made a most improved. I never made an honor roll. Never made nothing.
Mhm.
And so I got a letter in the mail saying I made the dean's list. And from that point, it became it became a game, a test. I wanted to see if I could do it again.
Right.
So I kept going. I kept going all the way through, and I didn't stop. I took full load classes, and I think the first year, no, the first my first two semesters in school, I still was without a job, and then I ended up getting hired for the county, and I was taking full load classes. Taking full load classes. I didn't stop until I got my master's. So I went straight through from beginning to end, full load classes, nonstop, because I kept wanting to see if I could make the D's list. Now, as I progressed, my grades kind of dropped a little bit, but nothing below like a 3.8,
Okay.
and really surprising me. But what it was is that I applied myself.
Mhm.
Whereas in high school, I didn't think I was smart. I didn't believe in myself much. I guess I
Mhm.
I'm going to say I had low self esteem, but it wasn't to the point where I was destructive. It was more of me not believing in myself. You
Okay.
know, so from that point,
Mhm.
I went to I went and I took an 8 month break in between my bachelor's and my master's because again I didn't think I was smart enough to continue all my master's, and something kept the spirit just kept pushing me. Say, look, go. And I went to Dallas Baptist the first time, and I spoke with the counselor, and I didn't like the vibe I was getting from her. Because she kind of looked at me as though I was beneath her or whatever. And I said, I don't need this. I got my bachelor's. I'm fine. And then I went back maybe a month later, and I think I spoke with another counselor, and I got accepted in and took full load classes. Now initially I was going to get my degree in counseling,
Okay.
and I took all of the classes for counseling except I think two of the capstone classes.
Mhm.
And what made me switch over to professional development was because it was liberal arts, and I had to you got to know yourself. If one thing, you have to know yourself, and I knew that counseling, I didn't think I'd want to spend the rest of my life listening to other people, although I do that now. But
Mhm.
in that capacity, I didn't think I'd want to do it. Plus, I know I have a warped sense of humor, and so
Mhm.
I didn't want to push nobody over the edge. Maybe you come to me with something, I'm gonna push you over the edge.
Right.
so, so I didn't want to do that,
Mm.
and I switched over to professional development, and from that point, that's how I got into getting a certificate in life coach and uh, mediation and things like that. So I did it, and it was more because I guess I believed in myself. I didn't think I was that smart, but I'm like, I guess I was. Only
Mhm.
because growing up, my dad, as a term of endearment, he would call me dummy. That was a term of endearment. But he didn't really know how that impacted me for many years. For many years, I really, for my mind, I didn't think I was. And so it took me until I was 42 to actually start college, and because I stayed away from it as much as I could, and in particular, it was math. And I took algebra my final year in my associate's degree because I said I need to take just that one class, and that's the class that the only words you heard from me was here, raise my hand here. The only words you heard from me. I ain't say nothing. I ain't ask no questions. I was fortunate enough to get a professor that had one rule. He said, "Come to class, don't ask no questions." And he said, "If you do nothing else, at best you'll come out of here with a C." That's all I needed.
Right.
He didn't hear from me. He didn't know I was in the room. Any other class, I gave the instructors, I gave them the business. So that was my college education, which I'm very grateful that I had the courage to do it and complete it. Yeah. I actually enjoyed it, loved it. I was taking, there were some semesters I took six classes while working a full-time job, because I just knew how to block off my weekends. Usually I would get started on any work Sunday afternoon about 2 o'clock to about midnight, and I'd lock myself in a room and write papers and anything I needed to do from that time frame.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's never too late. If you want to
too late.
It's never too late. You went to 42 after a whole, you said 20 years?
20 years in the military, correct.
Career. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's never too late. And so you got your reward on the latter end of life.
Right.
And that's what I'm experiencing now. Just getting the rewards on the latter end. And so when you get them, I think when you're older, you appreciate them more. It's just a whole different kind of experience.
Oh yeah. I tell you what's interesting is when I got my master's, when I crossed the stage, mm-hmm. came back to my seat, I had my degree in my hand, and I actually looked at it and said, "This is it. This is it." I mean, I'm like, this is it. This is over,
right?
Because you work so hard to get to that point, and I get to the stage, I walk across the stage, praying to God I didn't fall, slip, or whatever.
Right.
And soon as I get back and I open up, the little thing that they give the degree in, and I look at it, and I'm like, "This is it."
Right. You thought something was gonna pop out of it, some gold.
I'm thinking, what, because the question was, what next? What now? It's, when you reach that pinnacle of everything you want to do, it's like, what? Okay, what next? Mm-hmm. And I saw, just sitting in front of me, the PhD graduates. Oh, I love their robes, and I'm like, oh, okay, I gotta have me one of those, because I just figure I gotta do something else. Mm-hmm. So I kind of researched what it took for a PhD. They want another 5 years. I'm like, nah, I'm really burned out by this time. I can't do it. So I took a break and started studying for law school, because I said I was going to try my hand in law school.
Okay.
Took the LSAT. That was a test that I'll never take again, because it totally blew my mind. I guess for me, in terms of learning the law, and they'll tell you, law school has nothing to do with the practice of law. The LSAT has nothing to do with law school, but in the context of how they wanted you to think, I couldn't think like that, because if you give me a question, I can see 3 or 4 different scenarios, 3 or 4 different answers in that question. Like, well, no, just read the question and hear the answer they're providing you with. I'm like, I can't do that. Mm-hmm. So I took the LSAT. I did score within the range, and I did apply to a law school. I only applied to one because there was only one I was going to go to. And it's like when they came back and said they weren't going to accept me, I was okay with it because I did my part. I did that. And
Right.
so when they said, we're not going to accept you, I was fine. I closed every book I had and I was done. And that was 7 years ago.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. A 20-year career in the military and then school. And so how long were you in school? Like how many years were you in school
I
to
was
get
in school I started in 2000. I started 2004 and completed 2012.
wow.
Straight 8 years, nonstop.
That's awesome.
Except for some summers I took some summer classes, but straight through nonstop.
That's awesome. Congratulations, Lawrence.
Thank you.
That is amazing. That's very inspiring, especially for the older, the older people mind is not old, but just the old
Yeah.
our age group, 40s, 50s.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's very inspiring. If that's what you want to do, and not maybe it may not be college, it could be anything that you want to do. Write
Right.
a book, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. Right? You
Right.
may want to write some poetry. You may want to be an actor or actress. Some celebrities
Mhm.
they don't get known. They don't really blow up until they're about 50.
That's
Um,
right.
from my understanding, so it's never too late. And this is an example right here. You hear about it, but now I have somebody right in front of me, right next to me, who's sharing a story about doing things later on in life. And actually, it's nothing like saying, "Done. I did it. Done."
Done.
So
Mhm.
that's awesome. That's awesome. And so, what's your line of work?
I'm a felony criminal court coordinator.
Yes.
And what that is I run the docket in the felony criminal courts of in Dallas. Everything that happens comes through me. I set cases. I can issue warrants. Uh, I send letters to defendants, letting them know when their first court setting is. Reset cases. I deal with defense attorneys. I work for a judge, but I also deal with other judges. But I work with prosecutors, public defenders, probation. So I'm in the criminal justice field, but I run the overall operations of my court. The building that I'm in, we have 17 felony courts,
Mm,
and I'm in the 194th, and I run the operations of that court. So anything that needs to get done comes through me.
that's awesome.
I enjoy it because, as I stated earlier, I've always been fascinated with the law, and in this capacity, I get to see the law from the back end. There's a lot of things that the public don't get to see. Law and order is not true. Look, it doesn't happen that way. Okay,
Mhm.
it doesn't happen that way. There's a process, and I think outside of the enjoyment I get with talking with defense attorneys and learning strategy, talking with prosecutors and getting understanding of how cases are even brought to trial and what goes into that, the enjoyment I get actually is helping. People call wanting to know about loved ones, family members, this, that, and the other, and what they really want is just information,
Mhm.
and I'm able to give it to them, and sometimes I'm able to break down the process of what their loved one is going through or what that individual is going through because I get calls from defendants, and you know, believe me, it sometimes I may come across as non-empathetic, but I had to learn because I am dealing with defendants. I'm dealing with criminals, and not saying that in a bad light, but they'll lie. Everybody lies, and
Right.
so you have to kind of sift through what it is you hear and give it to them straight. And so I've had conversations with mothers. I've had conversations with fathers. I've had conversations with brothers and sisters about their loved ones who may be sitting in jail. That's okay. Let me explain how this process works. because they get one impression or what they may see on TV or what someone may have told them. Well, I give it to them exactly how it is. Yeah, I enjoy it because I learn and have learned a great deal. So if I didn't get a chance to be a lawyer, I work in the field, and lawyers got to come to me. So I got the best of both worlds.
I was about to say, yeah, yep, you did it. You a
You
step
have to come to me.
I love that. I love it. Anything's possible. Yes. Awesome. Awesome. Yes. And so, ladies and gentlemen, Lawrence is also a best-selling author. Okay. And I'm going to show you the book. Okay. And the title of this book is called Grief Through His Eyes. This was an anthology, ladies and gentlemen. And how many men? Let me see. 4.
14. Well, 13.
Yes, 13 amazing, beautiful men were in this anthology, and Lawrence was a part of this project. Okay. Grief Through His Eyes. He was a co-author, and the visionary is Deborah Juniper Fry. Okay, so we are definitely going to get into that. But before we do, I want to play like a commercial. We have a sponsor for our show for today, and then we'll get back into your book. All right. All right. Thank you, Own It Magazine, for being a sponsor of this episode of Snails with No Shells. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're just getting here, Lawrence Stokes, he has done so much. 20-year veteran. He's had all these degrees, was almost a lawyer.
All right.
Yes, and he is a best-selling author as well. He co-authored this book, Grief Through His Eyes. Grief Through His Eyes. Okay, so Lawrence, how did you get involved in this project?
Okay. Deborah Fry, her husband Mike, and I were stationed together 40 years ago on my first ship when in the Navy. Okay. And we lost contact, and I think probably about 6 or 7 years ago, we reconnected on Facebook. So last year, she put up a post about this anthology, and I saw it, and I kind of, I hemmed it hard on it because I said, well, that's it. I had texted her back and said, this is interesting. And she said, well, you might want to get involved in it. I don't know. Okay. And I kind of hemmed it hard on it, but then Mike had texted me. He said, look, man, you have grandchildren, and you might want to leave them a legacy. Okay, fine. So I got on board, and once I wrote my chapter, my chapter is called "Who Told You It Was Grief," and I titled that because my chapter talks about the loss of my parents at a young age, and so when writing the chapter, which really it took me about 3 hours one Saturday afternoon. I just sat down and wrote. I didn't reread it. I wrote it. I was extremely exhausted afterwards because it's something that I have not visited in over 50 years,
Mm.
especially put it on paper.
Hmm.
And so once I wrote it, I sent it to Deborah. I never reread it. It was not edited other than for me putting in punctuation and grammatical errors, but I didn't reread it per se. And since the book has come out, I haven't reread it. It is what it is. I'm the type of person that I'm going to tell you this is it. I can't build up to it. I can't kind of put it in such a way where you're leading into it. What next type of thing. That's it. This is what it was. And so I was grateful. I am grateful that I was able to be a part of it because it enabled me to tell a story that I would say 90% of the people that know me and have known me throughout my life do not know. Even the kids I grew up with who they used to come to my house, I would go to their house, they did not know this story. Mike, he and I were stationed together. He never knew this story.
Hmm.
The people who I've met since I've lived in Dallas, and I've been down here 22 years, never knew this story. It's just something I'm not going to say I not a need to tell it, but, it happened. I dealt with it
Hmm.
because I've always been the type of individual that no matter what I go through, I'll never project it. You'll never know because I don't want to. It's not your fault. I don't want to put it on you, and I always want to see you, not you per se, but anyone I meet. I always want to make them smile, make them feel comfortable. You don't never know what's going on with me. So I was very good at compartmentalizing my pain, my grief. So writing this story, I cried like a baby. After the first paragraph, I cried like a baby. And after it was done, after I wrote it, I was so exhausted. I had to take a nap. I literally sat back and just fell out. But once I wrote it, sent it in, my wife and I drove to Virginia from Texas because we got married in Virginia. And it was the first time we had been back in Virginia in 38 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we drove back, and we had the book launch. Got a chance to see Mike, who I hadn't seen in 40 years. I met his wife. I met the other 13 brothers, and it was an awesome day. It was a beautiful day, and since then, I am a part of volume 2
Awesome.
of the book because, believe it or not, there was a part of me always wanted to be a writer as well. So,
Yes.
I always wanted to be a journalist. It was a part of me always wanted to be, and I've always enjoyed writing, but I really never had anything to write about. And
Right.
so doing this, I wrote it, and I'm always the type that since I told that small part of the story,
Okay.
you have to tell the whole story. So I wrote my autobiography, which took me about maybe 3 months to write. I wrote it. It's completed. I just hadn't done anything with it, but I wrote it because you can't tell with me in my story, and as it goes with this book, there are 14 different stories. Everybody has a story, and it may not be a story for you, but there's a story in it for someone.
Yes.
But in this instance, for me, you only get a snippet because that story only takes me up to my 18th birthday. So I had to write my autobiography so you'll know what happened after that.
Right.
Where'd you go after that? What happened after that? What did you get into? What was your life like? Because the people that have purchased the book where I work can't seem to differentiate me from the story because to some that story is raw. but they look at me and see the kind of person I am, my demeanor and how I carry myself. They're like, I feel a different vibe, you
Mm,
know, which is, you know, it's okay, but you know how you know a person, you may have worked with a person, and you know a person's vibe, and you know when it
yeah,
changes.
yeah.
And I definitely see and have seen a change in the vibe of individuals that have read my story,
Mm-hmm.
because I guess they don't know what to say or how to take it,
Mm-hmm.
or who is that individual versus who this individual is standing in front of you. You
Right.
know, how come you haven't lost your mind, or how, whatever they think.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad I'm glad I did it. It's probably one of my best accomplishments that
Mm,
I actually didn't set out to do. It was put in front of me. I said, okay, you know, why not? So
yeah,
I'm glad I did it.
yeah. And I noticed you were saying how you basically compartmentalize
Right.
your pain, or
Mhm.
things that you've been through. And as most men, I think that's kind of normal, because you don't really have anybody to talk to about the things that you've been through,
Right.
and so you don't, they have a lot of groups for women. We have this group and that group. We can talk, we can let it all out, cry
Mm.
it out, hug it out. But men, not so many groups for you guys to support
Right.
your that need. You need that space to be able to be transparent to other men. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
I think that's the beginning of the healing, is,
Right.
for men being able to be transparent, first of all, and being honest in how they feel. So I commend you for that, for signing up, and being a part of this anthology, because it sounds like to me, you said you wrote it, you cried like a baby. This is something that you
Mm.
have just been internal, that you've been holding on for a while,
Mhm.
and you needed to release this. So I commend you for that. And can you give us just briefly maybe what your chapter was about? Because it seems like people all around you they don't know how to take it. So you must really give an uppercut.
My chapter I started it off with the loss of my mother at 8 years old.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't find her, but I stood over top of her as she was dying, and that that is the only memory I have of my mother. I don't remember anything before. I
Mm,
remember everything after. I don't know what my mother sounds like. I don't know. I my sister. I have three sisters. One has passed, but three sisters and three brothers. One of my sisters, Barbara, who I call mom because she's the middle. She's the forgotten Stokes. But
mm,
she asked me last year, as a matter of fact, on my birthday. She said, "What did you ever call mommy?" I didn't have an answer. I don't remember. I never remembered what I called her. And my mother died October October 8th of 71,
mhm,
and exactly 10 years, 4 days apart, my father passed. But my father passed after I had joined the military, and he was ex-Navy as well, so I was the only son that followed his footsteps.
mhm,
And so that was that's like I explained earlier. That story takes me up to my 18th birthday, which is the reason why I went ahead and wrote my autobiography, because um, my dad was he was my dude. I mean, I I spent a year from my sixth, because he remarried a year after my mother died, only because he had to see who somebody had to get me off to school. Okay, so he was kind of concerned about that. My dad was a long distance truck driver,
mhm.
and so he he remarried a year later, not knowing that the woman he married put us to pure DL.
Mm,
So he and I, he wasn't a he wasn't a mean man, wasn't a violent man. He was a very I knew he was different when she wasn't there. And a lot of times he would take me with him to go get pizza. My dad was an alcoholic, but he was the type that he never missed a day of work, and he was always up at old dark 30, gone, no matter how drunk he came home. And every night before he went to bed, he got on his knees and prayed. Do not know what he prayed about, but no matter his condition, he prayed, and he was up the next morning. And for that 1 year, from the age of 16 to 17, because I joined the military at 17,
Okay.
I got to know the man. I got to know. He and I talked every day after he got off work because he stopped driving long distance and he was driving local. So I would get out of school about 1:30, and I would just come home and take a nap and wait for him to come home, and he would come home and he would cook dinner, and he and I would talk. And he told me his entire life story. I got something that the rest of my brothers and sisters didn't get.
Mm.
And he and I talked for an entire year. And so I understood the man. Now, the view that I have of my father and the view that my oldest sister, who is 17 years older than me, and everybody after that, we have a different view of him. I guess they caught him early. I caught him late.
Right.
But in my mind, he was the greatest person that walked the earth. In my mind, because he was just a cool dude, and he, excuse me,
No, it's okay.
he never got a chance to see me in my uniform because he passed 4 months after I joined. And for probably, he passed right after my 18th birthday, and I think probably till about I was age of 33, I blamed myself because I felt that had I not left home when I did, I could have given him more life. But my older brothers and sisters knew that he was going to die, but they didn't tell me.
Okay.
For whatever reason, they didn't tell me. And so, from the time I was 18 till I was about 33, I blame myself. In fact, the month of October for those years were the worst months for me. If anything happened, it happened in October. I hated the month of October. And when I was overseas, on my 33rd birthday, I was on an island. I was on an island in the middle of the Indian Ocean, 7 degrees below the equator, 3 miles long by 6 miles wide. And at 33, I let it go, and finally said it wasn't my fault.
Yes.
I let it go, and from that point, it was like a load off of me.
Yes. That was
Although it was tough because I didn't know my mom, and having to navigate life without parents. And honestly, to this very day, my dad's been gone. It'll be what 41 years next week. And to this very day, I kind of live my life not wanting to disappoint him. So it's tough. But I made it. I can only hope that I made him proud. That's it. That's all I can hope for. Excuse me.
Excuse ain't no excuse me.
But
all smells and no shells. Leave that shell at the door.
Now the whole world sees me crying.
That's what we need to see. That's what we need to see. Men need to see other men crying. Tears are very healing. That's healing. You're healing. Every time we talk about it, write about it, you're healing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You talking about make him proud. Man, please. Like, are you serious? What more can you do? What's nothing more you can do? And this right here, to me, sharing your story and shedding tears, that's bigger than anything that you've ever done. This right,
Ah.
because this right here, this moment of you being transparent is going to change so many lives. It's going to touch so many lives, and it's so
Well,
necessary.
everybody has to, and I ain't gonna say have to, but should should tell your story. I've never been afraid to tell it. Um, I always I always try to be encouraging to people because I know how it is to not have it.
Yeah.
Um, I'll tell you a brief story. When my second granddaughter was getting christened, a family friend of ours and their parents came down, and we are going up to the front of the church to get my granddaughter christened. And I came out the aisle, let everybody go before me. I thought I was the last one.
Hmm.
And her dad was behind me, and he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, "I'll stand with you, son." And that broke me.
Mm.
That broke me because I never heard those words ever. I
Mm.
never heard them, and it took everything I had to keep it in while my granddaughter was being christened. But when I got outside the church, I lost it. I cried uncontrollably
Mm.
because those were the words I never heard, and to hear that, not knowing that this man was standing behind me, I didn't even know he was there,
Mm-hmm.
and he placed his hand on my shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
My dad never told me. He never told me he was proud of me. He never said he loved me, but that's the kind of man he was. I knew he did, but that's the kind of man he was.
Mm-hmm.
And to hear those words, "I'll stand with you," in the midst of everything I had gone through up until that point, uh, it was it. I really can't describe the feeling that I had because one thing I do to my sons, and I have two sons. One thing I do to them, I tell them I love them. I tell them I'm proud of them because those are the words I never heard,
Yes.
and uh, I never wanted them at any point to ever question whether I did.
Yes.
Because I won't lie, there are times when I question, was my dad proud of me?
Mm-hmm.
I've made mistakes. Who do you call? I'm 18. I'm in the military. Who do you call? Yeah, you got older brothers and sisters, but they're not someone that knows you like your parents do.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I tell you that I navigated this life, and God takes care of all fools, drunks, and babies, I was all three
Yes. Yes.
during that time frame.
Right.
Those that's a completely other story. But there was always a part of me that I always heard. I always heard that voice, whether it be God's voice, whether it be my dad's voice. I always heard that voice that said, "That's not you. If I'm doing something that I'm not supposed to, that's not you. That's not who you are." That's what I always heard, and
Mm-hmm.
so that has always kept me even keel because I never saw the look of disappointment on my dad's face, and I never wanted to see it.
Mm-hmm.
So even now, at my age now, at 59, I never want to see it.
Right.
And so that's how I always lived. That's how I've always conducted myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm a firm believer in like things that we've gone through in our past and growing up. I think like, God knows that we're going to have children.
Mm,
So we have to go through certain things so that we do not repeat, that cycle. You know,
mm-hmm,
you knew for a fact, like there's no way I have my kids. I'm gonna always make sure I tell them certain things that you did not hear.
mm-hmm.
So I think that we just go through things. And me, I feel like I'd rather go through it than my children have to go through
Right,
anything
right,
I've been through. You know what I'm
right.
saying? So
Right.
I think it's worth it. And, and I'm proud of you, Lawrence. Folks. Like you are amazing. Wow. And I'm glad that I knew it. I wanted to get you one on one, and I knew it. And I knew it. This is amazing. This is amazing. Oh my goodness. What a time. Ladies and gentlemen, again, I want to show them the book. This Lawrence is one of the co-authors of Grief Through His Eyes. Oh my gosh, y'all have to go get this book. Y'all have to go
Yeah.
get it. I mean, my goodness, and that's just one story of the
It's an amazing story. 14
yes,
amazing stories.
and all this healing. Let me show one more time. And then everybody handsome on their shirts and everything. I look so nice. I love it. Oh, 14 men, 14 stories. And Lawrence is one of the stories that you heard. And this is just some of it. I'm sure if we had a couple more hours, we'd get more. Oh my God, I got so filled, especially when you said that the man that came up behind you, he's like, basically, I got you. And I first thing that came to my mind is that might have been your dad, because he didn't get a chance to say it when he was living, but
Yeah.
God uses people to send you messages and to tell you things. We're all earth angels. We're all here to help each other out. You know what I'm
I
saying?
believe that. I believe that.
And I'm a believer that once our, ancestors, once they pass over on the other side, that they can do more for us and help us more on the other side than they can here in this, in the living space. You know what I'm saying?
I believe that. There's a part of me that, I always wondered why, my mother passed as early as she did, because she was only 42 when she passed, and
Mm-hmm.
I had to put it in the context of, had she been alive, maybe my life would have been different. We may not even be having this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Same way with my dad. It's like people. Sometimes when you're on that road, I want to use the analogy of like a highway. You're on this road. You have entrance. You have exits. You're on it. Some people are going to ride with you for a good while,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to get off. And some people are going to ride with you for a short while, and they're going to get off. But you have to travel that road, and I look for the lesson.
Mm-hmm.
That's the lesson. So out of everything that I had been through, the lesson for me was honor my parents. Now, like I said earlier, I don't really know my mom. I have a picture of her, and I don't believe any of my brothers and sisters have a group picture of our parents together. None of us do.
Mm-hmm.
But I lived my life to honor them.
Yes.
It's like saying don't go out here and make my name look bad. So I honor them.
Yeah.
and I can say that many things I did when I was in the military was overseas, so they wouldn't know. But
What happens in Vegas?
Exactly. But I made it back safe.
Right.
You didn't read about me in the paper. That's what
Right.
was important.
That's right. That's right. What an accomplishment.
That's right. and let me throw this caveat, which my sister and I, my older sister Gail, who had passed, we had to laugh about this one. She was afraid that I'd join the Navy because she knew I couldn't swim. I did 20 years and still don't know.
Wait a minute.
Look. Just don't put yourself in that position. Where I had to. And I've sailed the seven seas at least twice. Okay, I've been on 5 med cruises and 1 Westpac. I sailed around the world. Didn't know how to swim. I look over, water look beautiful, gorgeous, ain't getting in it. Nah, ain't me.
I heard it all. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. You have a great sense of humor. Oh, I love it. Oh my goodness gracious. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is Lawrence Stokes. He is an amazing guy. Man, with an amazing story. And I just like to say I'm honored and thank you for taking the time, to come on Snails with No Shells. We appreciate you.
I'm honored for you having me. As soon as I saw the opportunity, I jumped on it. I thought it would be very exciting. I guess you say leave the shells at the door. I showed a part of me that no one has never seen because that's something that my worst time for me is in my car.
Mhm.
So that's now the whole world knows. Thank you, BJ. The whole world knows. Thank you.
All right. It's all right. The world should know our heroes. The world should know our heroes. That's right. When you
I don't
change,
want to become a Michael Jordan meme.
that is too funny. Man, so before we go, with anything you'd like to say, a quote or just a thought or something that you'd like to share with the audience?
I'll share a quote. Maybe because I just got trust issues. In God I trust, all others pay cash. But that's that's another issue. But I would encourage anyone, no matter what it is you're going through, it's only for a moment. Believe me, there have been some really, really dark days in my life, but I also knew that I just have to keep going forward. No matter what it is you're going through, now is not the time to make any kind of rash decisions.
Mhm.
Sit back, sit back in silence. And that's what I had learned how to do. A lot of times for me, no matter what I'm going through, just let me sit for a minute. Let me think.
Right.
Because in that moment of silence, you'll get your answer. You'll get your plan of attack. There have been times when I wanted to make quick decisions. I want to handle things like right now, but
Mhm.
I've always been forward thinking, and I always think of the outcome.
Mm.
So no matter what it is you get into, before you jump or before you act irrationally, just take a. It all takes is a split second because everybody has that split second of sanity, where
Mm.
that voice says, "Hey, whoa, hold on, it's not right. It's not you." You have to know yourself as an individual. Know who you are.
Yes.
And that's the most important thing you can do. You have to know who you are, accept your quirks, accept your idiosyncrasies, anything's wrong, but most importantly, know who you are and keep moving forward. You're not alone. You never will be alone. But your story and how you live is is a testament and a guide to someone. I look at myself as a guidepost. I'm not perfect. I'll never be. I'm not trying to be, but I try to live my life in such a way that if you need me to show you the way or some encouragement, I'm here.
Yeah. Awesome. 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 That sounds like another book. Yes. I love it. Awesome. Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much, Lawrence, for being on the show. What I would like to say before we go first is share, share, share. That's all we ask is just share. We understand, some people have financial things going on right now. That's fine. If you can go get a book, purchase a book, that would be great. But if you cannot, you can share the information. Tell some people about the book and tell them where you heard it from on Snails with No Shells. That will help. And also, subscribe to my YouTube page. Okay. It's Ms. BJ Martin, MS BJ Martin. I'm on YouTube. You can see more interviews and more things about me. And I just celebrated my 1 year anniversary on Snails with No Shells. So, yes, you need to check out the interviews on Lawrence. Have you subscribed to my
Oh
YouTube channel?
yes. Oh
Awesome.
yes.
All right, that's right. You sure haven't. You've left sometimes. Okay, I just want to make
That's
sure.
right. See?
Awesome, awesome. All right. And the second thing I would like to say is remember, ladies and gentlemen, just like the sun, you are necessary. I love y'all. Peace.
Just my imagination. is just insanity for me to constantly care for that deep soul.